Hello, everyone. Welcome to this week's episode of Forgiving the Girl Inside, a healing journey from and to. And to fill in the blanks this week, we have Roberta sharing her personal journey of going from alcoholism to sobriety. And she is an incredible woman. I have known Roberta for many, many years, and she is going to come on here and share a very, very personal story, a personal journey. And before she comes on, I just want to give you a little bit of background about her. She loves the Lord. Roberta and I met in church, and she has a heart on fire for the Lord. So her story is so incredible, but just how the Lord just turns our hearts and helps us to focus on Him, especially when so many things are calling for our attention and keeping us from really truly forgiving the girl inside. She loves to read, journal, exercise, travel, meditate, and learn new things. So please welcome Roberta. How you doing today?
Hi, Lisa. Thanks for having me. I'm doing great. So happy to be here with you.
Yeah, I'm happy to have you and to share your journey. So tell us what happened like with the alcoholism, and like how did you realize that it became a problem for you?
Oh, sure. Well, I have two sons, okay, and they are 27 and 25. And as a mom in my 30s, I'm 57, and as a mom in my 30s, as all young moms do and go through, you have ebbs and flows with motherhood and trying to get everything done and going to church and teaching vacation Bible school and keeping up with room mother appointments and trying to be the soccer mom and all that stuff. And for a long time, I thought I was just, juggling all these balls in the air, and I felt that I could do it all. I will backtrack for a second. When I was a young woman, a single woman, I've been married for almost 30 years to my wonderful husband Mark, and I thought for such a long time that there was something I was missing in my life. I always felt an emptiness, and I believe I would cover that with different substances, and one of them was alcohol. And I always kid if I give my testimony in a meeting, um, the meetings I go to, we like to call it's a 12-step program. I don't say the name of it because they are big on attraction and not promotion. So I kind of stick to that rule. You can probably figure out what the 12-step meeting is. But I always kid with people when I go and do my testimony that I really don't remember the 1980s at all. And by the grace of God, pretty sure I'm here to tell my story and to give hope, my strength and hope for young women and men who are going through the struggle. Alcohol is a big struggle with a lot of people, and for a long time I kept it under wraps, or I thought I kept it under wraps, and that's really the disillusion of actually not disillusion, it's the illusion of having things under control. And what really happened was my life was pretty unmanageable, even though I lived in a nice home, married a nice man, had two great little kids. For a long time, I would mask whatever anxiety I thought I was having or was having as the part of being a young mom. I was drinking, and I was drinking to excess. And my husband noticed it and had actually said to me, "You really need to get your act together, because if you don't, I'm not staying in a marriage like this." And I was probably 33 years old at the time, and that really scared me. So I decided I'm going to take the bull by the horns, and I'm going to check myself into Park Ridge. It's now Unity Hospital. And I decided to learn what I could about alcohol, how alcoholics' brains are different than social drinkers or people who don't drink. And it turned out to be very eye-opening for me. So at that point, I just thought I could handle alcohol on my own. And for a long time, I did. I ran a marathon when I turned 40. I didn't drink while I was pregnant. I did all the right things. And Unfortunately, alcoholism is a very insidious progressive disease and recognized by the American Medical Association. And I ended up 3 years ago, almost 3.5, almost 4 years ago now, I had an ankle fusion surgery on my right ankle. And that's when my alcoholism, that's when the disease really took over. And I was drinking every day. I was drinking probably 2 bottles of wine a day and, feeling sorry for myself that I was laying around not being able to do anything except fold laundry. And I was having a pity party. And the long and short of it was, um, I knew that if I wasn't going to stop drinking, that this disease would eventually kill me. And there's alcoholism runs in my family. My mother's a recovering alcoholic. And um, I decided that I was going to stop drinking and really yelled out to God for help. And I got it. I really got it in the form of really listening. For decades, I tried to control my drinking on my own and it did not work. And I would get upset with myself. I had smoked cigarettes for a long time and I quit smoking cold turkey, no problem. I felt like a person that if I put my nose to the grindstone and I could will myself, I could have, it's not really about willpower, but I thought back then that I could force myself to get a handle on it. And when I couldn't, that was an eye-opening experience too. So um, I've been sober 3.5 years, and you got to live life on life's terms. And, that doesn't mean that life is completely wonderful, especially with the pandemic. Um, I've heard a lot of stories of people relapsing, and I've also heard a lot of stories of people getting sober during this time. Um, so that's really it. I mean, I actually did have a God moment and I listened at this time because I wasn't listening. And I just remember the hypocrisy of when I was a woman in my 30s telling my mother, if you don't stop drinking, you're not going to see your grandchildren. And I remember a voice inside of me saying, look in the mirror, you are an alcoholic and you
Mhm.
really don't have the right to say that. But then I thought, you know what, I'm going to drink for another 20 years because I'm having too good of a time. And I don't think it's irony. I think that's a God thing. I drank for another 20 years. I got sober at the age of 53. Um, so it's been a great journey. It's been hard at times. The addiction, I think, will always stay with me, but I know that I have the power of my higher power is God. And in my 12-step program, God is a big power in that, in the 12 steps. So having said that, I just continue, especially with Zoom now with the pandemic, you can go to Zoom meetings in Ireland and England and Spain and go to AA all the time, and they're on 24/7. So there's really no excuse not to hit up a meeting. But um, my goal is to obviously stay sober, and I live in the day. I don't look ahead. Um, I've never said I'm never going to drink again. I always say it's really pillow to pillow. Lord, help me stay sober. Then Lord, thank you for keeping me sober. So it's really a one day at a time mantra. Really is what's helped me and kept me on the straight and narrow with drinking.
Yeah. What are some of the trigger points for you where you really need? So I imagine you have a sponsor, you have somebody that you can call when
Yeah.
you get into a trigger point, but what's a trigger point look like and how do you process it?
Well, it's very interesting because going through this journey, I have found out who my friends have been, and I found out who my friends who I thought were really good friends ended up being, um, and they're great women. They're just not the friends I thought they were for me, and
Right.
it makes me understand that drinking was a part of our friendship, a huge part of our friendship. So they decided, I don't know if they think it makes me feel funny. And, I have people, my husband drinks socially. Alcohol is always around me. There's alcohol in my house. We have a house on Canisius. We have a boat. We have, drinking is a big part of the summer. And everybody else is drinking and I'm drinking my club soda, and I get crazy sometimes and I add cranberry juice to it and a lime, and um, I've gotten a soda stream and I put different flavors in it. And the trigger points have been summertime, if I've had a especially anxious day, if I feel
Hmm.
caregiving for my parents, even though they don't live with me, they are in an independent living facility, trying to keep up with their appointments. That could be a trigger point. I would be lying if I told you that I don't miss drinking. I miss the social aspect of it, but I also know that alcohol is poisonous to me. I think of it, I equate it as an allergy. I'm allergic to alcohol, and if you were to eat strawberries and break out in hives, you're not going to eat strawberries anymore, hopefully.
Right, right.
And so those are some of the trigger points, but I say the serenity prayer, and I just say a simple prayer, God, get me through this, and he does. It's great.
That's awesome. That's, yeah, I know trigger points, a lot of women suffer with unhealthy coping mechanisms. I mean,
Hmm.
it could be an addiction to retail therapy or
Hmm.
food or exercise. Even things that we consider healthy can be an addiction if we are over excessively doing something to mask a hurt that we may be experiencing.
Right.
So you mentioned the 12 steps. Does it
Mhm.
take, and you mentioned being 4 years sober to go through the 12 steps? Is it a time frame different for everybody or?
Yes, yes. In fact, my sponsor, who's phenomenal, she's got almost 30 years of sobriety. Um, she has said, she's asked me, but I think I was her sponsee for about 2 weeks, and she said, "Okay, when will you finish the 12 steps, and when do you think you're going to graduate?" And I looked at her and I said, "Oh, that's a trick question." I said, "Because I will always be on the 12 steps, and I will always be on a step, and I will never graduate." And she's like, "You get a gold star." And I said, "Yeah, I mean, I get it. You can apply the 12 steps to really any part of your life.
Mhm.
You know, admitting I'm powerless over alcohol, that's step one. I already knew that. You can fill in the blank with that. I am powerless over food. I'm powerless over, shopping online. I'm powerless over whatever." And I think a 12-step program is very beneficial with, it's made me realize within that um, journaling journaling about these thoughts too has helped me a great deal, because before I was somebody that kind of went, "Oh, I'm okay, I got it." Now I reach out for help a lot more.
Mhm.
Now I reach out and go, "I'm not perfect, and I'm having a day," and it has nothing to do with wanting to drink. It just has to do with, I got to call somebody and say, "You know what, I'm having a thing today with such," and that's been a huge motivator for me too, because before I would think I can handle it on my own. I don't need any help. So
Right.
it's been helping.
And it's awesome. It's, having a sponsor, coaches have coaches, a mentor
Yeah.
sponsor, somebody that you can rely on and trust that can help you through, that
Hmm.
dip in that cycle, whatever. Because it is, sometimes you think you can do it on your own. And then when you try, you said you tried for several years and you just kept turning to that coping
Hmm.
mechanism. In the 12-step program, they get to the root of the problem. You realize what the problem is, and then you could heal from there and go forward. And like you said, you never graduate, you just continuously do
Right.
it. And it is
Right.
a commitment. Did you ever falter on that commitment? Did you ever stop and say, this is too hard, I'm not going to do this? And then, and if so, what happened when you did that?
It's interesting you asked me that, because the whole start of this journey was realizing that I'm tired of being hungover. I'm tired of, a hangover wasn't just a day anymore. A hangover was days. And honestly, a woman in her 50s, it's not pretty when you're acting inappropriately and you're hanging on people and you blackout drink, which I was a blackout drinker. I wouldn't remember really, like, the next day. Like, I would try to fake it with my husband and go, "Oh yeah, yeah, I know what you're talking about." And he's like, "You have no idea what I'm talking about." And
Mm,
so we would get on these discussions of, "I think your drinking needs to be, you need to get a handle on it." And I would get super defensive and I'd say, "I'm fine." And then I would go months without having a drink, or I would train for a marathon. Like when we would turn 40, we went to Disney and did the Disney marathon. And then
Mm.
I would say, see, I told you, I don't have a problem with alcohol, until I did have a problem with alcohol. So at certain times I would think, it's hard to call yourself an alcoholic, but I'm also a mom, a wife, a friend, a daughter of Christ, an aunt, you name it. Being an alcoholic does not label me, is not the only label for me. I mean, it's just a
Right.
piece of the big piece, the big picture, so many pieces that make us women who we are. And, um, going through that process, I would say, you know what, maybe I'm really not an alcoholic, when deep down, I know I am. I'm a
Hmm.
recovering alcoholic. I'm in recovery. At the beginning of our 12 step meetings, if you speak and you share, you can say, hi, I'm Roberta, I'm a sober alcoholic, is usually my mantra. And I remember working with a sponsee, and she's like, I can't say alcoholic. I said, don't say it. Don't say
Right.
hi. Just say, hi, I'm Jane Doe. Hi, I'm Jane. You don't have to say that. Just a little quick story. I was at church, and I forget what, it was Philippians 4:13. I can do all in Christ who strengthens me. And there was like 60 women, and somebody said, who would like to share how the Lord has worked with you, this week, this month, whatever. So I said, okay, I'll do it. And I knew I was going to share. They had told me. So I got up there and I said, hi, I'm Roberta. I'm a sober alcoholic. And you could have heard a pin drop. And I said, oh, I'm so sorry. It's the wrong meeting. But, having said that, I got 4 ladies out of that meeting at church who said, you know what? I think I have a problem with alcohol. Can we talk? And then I've been at church, or no, I've been at my 12-step meeting, and somebody has said to me, hey, I used to think I was agnostic, and I think there is a thing about this higher power. Where do you go to church? Can we talk? So God has really shown me there's been a cross with that, which is so cool, because you never know when someone is going to need you for a coach, or, for anything, for tell me your experience with this. How do you feel about that? And it's like, okay. And yeah, why don't you come to church with me too? I mean, it organically happens like that. So it's such a cool vibe. I love that. I love
Yeah,
it.
that is awesome. And yeah, we are here. I mean, when we share our stories, people need to hear it, and they need to know that they're not the only ones out there. A lot of people
Hmm.
think that they're the only ones. They're the only ones, that have the shame and guilt, and it's so wrong. We're so used to hiding behind our guilt and shame and stuffing our feelings.
Hmm.
We're fearful, and it's one of the blockers is that fear. And but when the first time when you can share your story, and you can say, well, yeah, this is what I struggle with,
Right.
and people can say me too. I know the first time I shared my story, I was petrified, and then people were like, hey, me too. It's like, oh, I'm not the only one. So
Hmm.
it is really powerful, and I'm so glad that you decided to share, and to help others and step forward. And I'm glad you made that blurb in church, because
Oh, it was
that's
so funny. It was so great. And I'm like, that's a God thing. It was like, because I was just so used to saying, hi, I'm Roberta, I'm a sober alcoholic. And it's like, oh, okay, that's cool. Wrong meeting. But since I got your attention, it's great. And the ironic, well, it's not irony. It's at my church, at the church I attend, they have a
Mhm.
recovery group on Tuesday nights, which I didn't even know about. So that was like another thing. It's like, oh, cool. I can, go to this now too. So God has
Yeah.
shown so many different avenues to help, and to show that you're not alone, and to bring others to an understanding that this is not a bad thing. It's not a shameful thing. There is
Right.
help out there if you want help, and nobody has to push anything on anybody.
Right.
I have found personally, when I've worked with sponsees who have broken up with me. I call it breaking up with me, or they don't want me as their sponsor. And at first I was like, oh my gosh, what did I do wrong? It's honestly, they're not ready to make that commitment to get sober, or they don't want to do it right now, and that's okay. I've
Right.
just planted a seed. It's like witnessing. um, I used to be so afraid to witness about God and about Jesus, and people would say, you have an opportunity and you should do this, and I'd sit there without saying anything, and then I would realize it's not up to me. I'm just planting the seed.
Right.
But I will tell
Exactly.
you, it's called a pink cloud. The first 2 or 3 months of sobriety, people, men and women, will tell you. I mean, I would come home and I would say to my husband, "Why aren't you asking me about these meetings?" And he'd say, "Because I thought you're not supposed to talk about it." I'm like, "Well, I won't tell you anything, no names or anything." So he and my son went to a meeting with me just to see how a meeting was. And doesn't my husband know 5 guys in the meeting, all golf? And they're like, "Oh, wow." So I told him after the meeting, I said, "You can't say anything to anybody." He goes, "We're not talking about alcohol. We're talking about our handicap." I'm like, "Oh, okay." That's good. That's good too, then, I guess.
Yeah,
You're always
exactly.
touching somebody, especially living in Rochester, New York.
Hmm.
There's such less than 6 degrees of separation. So
Yeah. And God has our paths crossed for a reason.
absolutely.
Just at that
Absolutely.
perfect time. So I love that. There are no coincidences. They're all God timing,
Yes.
divine timing. So
Yes.
if you could give one word of advice to somebody that is struggling with addiction, to alcohol or any of that, any addictions that we mentioned, what would be um, advice that you'd like to give?
I think you and I have already discussed it. Don't be afraid to reach out. Tell somebody, call a number in the phone book. The 12-step group that I'm talking about is all over the place. You can Google addiction and all these numbers come up. And
Hmm.
whatever is your stronghold, God's got a number for you, and God will put people in your life, really. If you think you're alone, like you and I talked about, Lisa, you're not alone. And if you just reach out, you will be so blessed, and you will be amazed, and it'll be a relief because,
Hmm.
oh, I thought I was the only one going through it. Even though, I can remember my first meeting, walking in, and I saw like people that I knew from my previous job, and they were like, "Wow, I didn't think you would be here." And I'd be like, "Back at you." So it's all like it's all this dirty secret, but it's not a dirty secret.
Right.
God wants you to tell people and talk about it and to reach out. So that's the good thing. I would say anybody that's struggling, just reach out, because you, 9 out of 10 times somebody's going to talk to you and say, "Hey, I can help you for sure.
Yeah.
Here's my
There's.
experience, strength, and hope. And here you go.
Hmm.
I'll leave this with you. And if you want help, just give me a call." I'm not here to force anything down anybody's throat by any means,
Right.
but it's great to be sober. I highly recommend it for anybody who's struggling. There's so many things out there that you can experience without being hungover, without having a headache. And guess what? You got to live life on life's terms, okay? Bad things happen all the time.
Yeah.
Drinking may seem to help for, an hour, a day, a week, whatever, but when you really face the problem, straight on, you still got to live your life, and you still can get help from people, from professionals, from doctors. And I ask God for help every day, just help me put people in my life that I can help, because I
Hmm.
I love helping people, and this has been a doorway for me. The only thing I do wish is that I would have discovered this, 30 years ago. But
Yeah.
that's okay. God's timing is good. It's
That's
perfect.
right. His timing is perfect. Well, thank you so much. That is a beautiful message of hope. So, if you are struggling with alcohol, drug addiction, or any addiction, retail therapy, food addictions, smoking, even, there's so many things work. Um, Even like if you're an excessive sports player, sometimes that could be an addiction for you. There is hope. So, you can definitely reach out, hit the internet, Google, talk to a trusted friend, a pastor, for recommendations, and know that you are not alone. Thank you so much, Roberta, for being here. I
Oh,
loved your
thank
story.
you.
And thank you for everyone out there for watching. If you know somebody that can benefit from this message, please share the video. Be sure to hit the subscribe button, tap on the bell so you can be notified. This episode, Forgiving the Girl Inside, debuts every week with real women coming on to tell real stories. And if you'd like to learn more, visit my home on the web at lisadrennan.com. Have an amazing day.
Yay. Yay.